Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in for another review, and it's a nice little small one today, so hopefully a bit of a shorter video for you guys. Solar Storm. This is a recent Kickstarter that should be fulfilling in the near future, done by, pronounce it right, Dranda Games Limited. They're based in the UK and designed by Aidan Loafer. Again, hope I'm not butchering the name there. But Solar Storm is this fairly small card game with a cooperative element where essentially, for whatever reason, your ship is hurling into the sun, you know, or it's basically about to blow up for whatever reason. And on the ship are various locations, they're all in disrepair, and you're trying to move around the ship, repair these locations, and then eventually switch on the core after diverting power from those locations to the core itself. Sounds more complicated than it actually is. It's essentially you're playing cards with different parts on them in order to first repair the locations, and then after that playing additional cards to then divert power. So it's basically collect the cards, pay whatever cost it is, and then achieve the objective. So it's kind of similar to most other co-ops in this genre. So other than that, the game basically boasts 1 to 4 players, 45-minute timer, has a solo mode, and it's one that I barely knew anything about really. It just appeared on the scene. I saw it at GridCon and a couple of other conventions where the designer was playtesting it. This is I believe, the final version that you will get in retail, which is the basic version of the game. There is a basic and a deluxe version of this, and I'll go on to brief details as to what I think about the differentiation between them. But the question is this card game worth anything? You know, a relatively unknown Kickstarter, or is it worth your time and money? Well, let's go into some detail. So duration first. This is actually a very quick game. You know, when I was playing this, I kind of got the feeling that it reminded me of games such as, you know, Forbidden Desert, Forbidden Island and that, and this is already in my collection. But if you imagine that these co-op games, which basically gave you like a grid of locations and then you move around all over this grid, achieve something and then hopefully win before the game kills you. This is that same kind of thing. All these types of games tend to be quite short. I would say this is one of the shorter ones out there. Probably on par with Forbidden Island in terms of its length, and I would say shorter even than Forbidden Desert slightly. It says 45 minutes on the box. I dare say that is the maximum it should take you even after teaching. You know, 4 players, 45 minutes, but even then I think that you would either die first or you would achieve your victory before then. No way this should take you an hour. I think this is too short of a game for an hour to kick in, and when I played it solo, you tend to actually get it done in about 30 odd minutes or so. Maybe allow for an hour if you play it on Tabletop Simulator and that, but in real life, this one did not take very long at all, which is pretty neat actually, because for a card game that's small box like this, you don't want it to take too long, particularly as this is definitely geared towards a more sort of family orientated. I mean, you know, the theme that, yeah, you're about to blow up in space. Well, there's nothing particularly damning about that, but the complexity of this game, as we'll get onto in a minute, is definitely more suited to a family nature. While on that, ease of play. This is a very easy game to learn. I mean, the rulebook is not particularly big. That's the rulebook. And the back has a reference guide. And I will dare say that few pages are devoted to all the locations to explain how they work in detail, which is great, including the deluxe version, more on that later. And 2 or 3 pages devoted to a solo mode. And apart from that, setting up the game is 2 pages. There's a whole diagram for how to set it up. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages for the actual game. And it's all got pictorial representations and not that much in the way of text. This is a very easy game. I pretty much knew nothing about this. I just said, right, I'm going to unwrap it. And as I do with all my games, I just basically go, right, here it is. Get the components out. Right, let's see how you play this. It really didn't take me long to get into this. Probably, what, like 15 minutes of my own time to absorb how the game worked? I could probably teach this in 5 minutes. It really is pretty simple, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. I think that's a really good thing. You know, if you're going to play this with families and, you know, new players, I would say this is actually gateway gamer friendly. There's not a lot to it. You know, there's no fiddly bit with the cards that you're collecting. It's just ones, I mean, whether you call it iron or power or whatever, you could just say it's red, green, yellow, or blue. You know, you can do it by colours, or you do it by type. So this does work from a blind perspective, because at the end of the day, you have got, you know, location cards, but the locations have got names, so that's all you need. The cubes are all the same colour, so there's no worry about that. And all the parts are essentially like that. You know, so if you don't recognise that that's red, there's a huge symbol of metal on there with the symbology for metal. If you don't know that's power, it's got the big battery on it and even the sign at the top for battery. I mean, and even the mixed ones are good. So this is definitely, I think, colorblind friendly, new player friendly, child friendly, apart from, you know, really young ones eating the cubes, I guess. But other than that, there really isn't anything in here to suggest that you should have difficulty understanding the rules or understanding the game in general. And that's a solid thing in my book. So moving on to tactics and strategy, here it's kind of a bit like that Forbidden Island Desert regime like I mentioned before. So if you've played those games, you're going to get a very similar feel to this one. Although there are one or two advantages, because you may be thinking, well, hang on, if it's just like Forbidden Island Desert, is this better than those games? In terms of when I've played it, I do prefer the Forbidden Island and Desert games. I think they are better as games. But this one does have a perk. Look at this, and then look at this. Clearly, one is bigger than the other. This one has the edge on portability. It doesn't take up a lot of space on the table, and it comes in a very small box, and all you need is the cards. Don't really even need to sleeve them either. I don't see the point, really, for a cheap little card game like this. So, you know, if you want to take this on holiday with you, this is a much better contender than any of those other games. But is it fun to play? It's fine. I don't think this is mind-blowingly like amazement or anything. I certainly don't think this is going to revolutionize co-op games, but it does have that similar feel. Right, okay, I've got these locations. Random setup, go. And then you can discuss with each other as a co-op. Now, there is the slight hindrance of an alpha player syndrome because all the information is revealed, so there could be that one person that decides to goad other people on, but if you can avoid that problem, that is more of a player problem than a game fault. But other than that, the location abilities, you've got the different ones there, so you can use them to your advantage. You can only use them if the place is fully repaired, so you might be thinking, well, that ability is really cool. It just got damaged. Right, well, hang on, I've got how many action points? 3, so if I go there and repair it, that's move there, then repair it, and then I've got 1 action to trigger the ability. Good. And those are the kind of very simplistic decisions you're going to make. And the actions that you have are pretty straightforward. I mean, you can move, you can scrounge for resources, you can activate a location ability, and you can repair/divert power, which is basically just trade in the cards. Not difficult at all, and also not particularly much in the way of brain burning. Now, there definitely is a luck factor to this game because you have not only the scrounging for resources, which is based on the die roll, bit of a mismatch. I'm not a huge fan of it because, granted, you can get resources at the end of your turn for free, so you don't actually have to scrounge for resources too often. But when you're kind of thinking, I need cards, so I need to build up quite quickly, to have it so that if you roll a 1, you get nothing is a little bit of an annoyance. I kind of would have rather that maybe you get 2 resources for a 6, 1 resource for a 2 to 5, and then nothing for a 1. I think it's like that, or it's 1 for a 1 and 2, I can't remember. But I would have preferred maybe if you kept the 6 and didn't have the auto failure. I think the auto failure is a little bit much, so that you know that when you scrounge you're going to get 1 resource, but you may get 2 if you're lucky. If you want to balance that out with the fact that you've got a face-up tableau in the deck, you could simply say that you're not allowed to take from the face-up tableau if you scrounge, because that makes thematic sense. I mean, you are literally clawing at everything, trying to find out where everything is. You don't know you're going to find metal or batteries, it just happens. So, I mean, you could tweak that to your heart's content, but, I mean, it didn't bother me too much, given that you're only going to do it so often, and it's a 1 in 6 chance, so the odds are in your favour. But, all in all, it does the trick. In terms of difficulty, you've got several difficulty ratings you can go for, and that's usually based on the composition of the resource deck, because you have these cards that are wilds, and the less wilds you put on, the more difficult it is. And they do make a bigger impact than you realise, because it's nice when you get one of those wilds. It's like, oh yeah, that's the one resource we need. Versus when you play it on harder difficulties and you've got to rely entirely on good card distribution, but also a bit of luck. You are drawing mainly from the deck. There is only 2 cards in the face-up tableau for you. The rest of it is all hidden. So you're drawing cards at the end of your turn. Yes, you can draw from the face-up tableau, but let's say you constantly get 2 metal in there, and you're looking entirely on blues. Well, you could draw from that deck for ages and never find blues. They could all be at the bottom of the deck. That can be a little bit irking at times. Also, the damage works in a similar manner to Pandemic. You don't shuffle them back into the deck or anything like that, but in Pandemic you had the starting setup where you infect cities with 1 cube, infect cities with 2 cubes, and then 3 cubes. Similar with this, you build a damage deck full of 1, 2, and 3 damage cards, and it's 1 location, 2 location, 3 location. You do a couple of 3 locations to begin the game, then you go through all the 1s, then the 2s, then the 3s, so the game escalates. The longer you take, the more it's going to try and kill you at the very end. And it does give a good feeling of tension and suspense, as when you then trigger the next tier, it's like, oh, we're on the 2s now, guys. And then later on, you're like, we've been on the 2s for a while here, it's going to start hitting 3 soon, we need to get a move on. You know, it does come up with those situations quite nicely. So going on to aesthetics, again, bit of a plus point, really. I mean, Solar Storm does have a more striking cover with the bright sun, loops around the side of the box, and, you know, even though it doesn't have the shelf presence, apart from the fact it's got good artwork, the rest of it in here does look very nice and colourful, especially for a game that's supposedly in space. But, you know, the cards themselves are not, you know, they're brightly coloured, so they do plop on the table. Apart from that, everything else is kind of like your main range of black cards with the various colour borders. The damage cards, they're essentially just like the coloured locations so you can make them out. And there's a few other cards for various other purposes, like reference aids or some other mechanics in the game, like based on locations. But all in all, it does look nice. I mean, these are, I believe these are linen finished cards. They're pretty sturdy. Again, I don't think you need to sleeve these at all. You get some custom little meeples, you get some gold translucent cubes. All in all, it's a pretty solid package all round. And for the cost of this, which is not that particularly expensive, you're not expecting like miniatures everywhere and glossy this and all that sort of thing. It's like, no, for what you get in the box, I think even for the basic version, it's a decent deal. Now, I don't know enough about the deluxe version to compare cosmetics on that one. There's only really one reason why I'm going to tell you that you should always buy the deluxe edition, but we'll get onto that in a couple of categories' time. So all in all, aesthetically, I think it's pretty solid for the price that you are paying. Now, in terms of the immersion of theme, not so much. There's not a great deal of theme in here. Yeah, the setting is fine, you know, you're in space, your ship's going to blow up and that, but you could use any theme you like on this style of game. I mean, I've already just mentioned Forbidden Island and Desert, which are similar things. One, you're stuck in an island, one, you're stuck in a desert. There's another Forbidden Sky, you're stuck in the air, now you're stuck in space. Either way, it's running around a grid of cards and cashing in cards, you know. There's nothing here that makes you feel like you're in space. Particularly, even the location abilities kind of feel a little bit random at times. You know, there's not like, they're not random abilities, but you go to a location and it does this, and you're like, why that location? Why does that allow me to do that? I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, you're not buying this game to get immersed in the, you know, the space theme for Solar Storm in that. You're buying this because it's a simple cooperative card game. But even though the theme won't immerse you, the game should engage you, because turns are very quick. You've got 3 action points on your turn, then you draw some cards, discard down if need be, damage card reveal, which everybody needs to pay attention to anyway, and that's it. Next player's turn. And 3 action points, you will be discussing with other players what you want someone to do, and that's pretty straightforward as well. So you shouldn't be just standing there kind of twiddling your thumbs, waiting to see what will happen. And then finally, and this is the part where it takes a little bit of a downturn for me, longevity. In the base set that I have here, you have the 8 locations and the central core. But that's it. You use all 8 locations. You have them in different orientations, so, you know, your mess hall might be here, then it's there, and in the next game it's there. You know, 2 locations that synergize well might be miles apart or close together. So you will get some randomized setup for longevity. The problem is, the rulebook goes into detail about the version 2 of cards. And that basically just means that every single location on the board has an extra location for it, like 2 versions of the repair center. The problem is, you only get those locations in the deluxe version of the game. Now, I don't know how much more expensive this game is. It probably will push the price point beyond something of Forbidden Desert and Island, which is a little bit of a problem. But I do think that you should probably fork out that extra for it. Because the biggest problem with this is that seeing those 8 abilities all the time is going to get a little bit repetitive quickly. You know, other games don't necessarily have these abilities, but I know that, oh yeah, this ability is so useful. Right, well, I'm going to try and use it every game then. The abilities themselves are all generally quite useful, but there's some that are more useful than others. And particularly, one of them involves protecting certain locations. And like you put a token on there, and then if it comes up in the damage, it won't get hit. The problem is, you have no idea what's coming up in the damage. So it's completely blind. You can work out sort of from like the first tier that, oh, we've already had the mess hall once, so we're not going to get the mess hall for another while yet. But then once you start getting into tier 2 and tier 3 damage things, you can't really work this stuff out. And so something like that is just guesswork. I would have liked it if you could have predicted it a bit more. But then on the flip side, something like look at the next 3 damage cards that are coming up and rearrange them. Fantastic. Another one that says repair a location by cashing in a card, i.e. you don't have to be at that location to do the repair. Absolutely fantastic. Like, that is the one location I will repair all the time because it basically removes movement for a lot of the game. And so to have those extra location abilities would have been nice. And for that reason, I don't see why there is a deluxe version. It was on Kickstarter. Maybe it was a way of selling the game on there. But personally, I would have just thrown all those locations in the box, had one version of the game, and then you got the full complete package. Because if you had version 2 of these locations and you could mix and match, that would increase the longevity of the game tenfold. All right, that's a generalization, but you get what I'm saying. It could have had much more replay value with those V2 locations in the retail version of the box. And that's why I feel if you're going to get this game, pay that little bit extra, get those other locations, and then you should be fine. But I think from the retail perspective, after a few games, you're going to start seeing that repetition grate slightly. All in all, I'd give Solar Storm probably a good 7 out of 10. You know, again, don't think it's a revolutionary game. I'm not going to suddenly say, this is a must-buy, you must go out and get it. But I give it a 7 because with a seal of endorsement, because I do believe that this fits nicely alongside these other types of games and is a worthy choice. If you're going out there and you think, I want a family-way new gamer-friendly co-op that is portable or, you know, that isn't too expensive, let's say travel's not even a factor, you could look at this alongside those other games and it would be a worthy decision to pick this one. Again, it's going to come down to you. I personally prefer other games, but I'm happy that I got to play this and I would happily recommend it as a choice for other people. So that's it for me and Solar Storm. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. Regardless of this, if you can, subscribe to the YouTube channel. God knows if I'll have hit 10,000 subscribers by now. Here's hoping, but we shall soon see. Find me on Facebook and Twitter and just generally get in touch. You know, there's going to be more content on the way. So until then, I'll see you soon. And regardless of whether you've blown up in space and flown into the sun, it's still only a game. So take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you soon.